Okay, now we got on the boat. Of course, we went steerage. Steerage meant a horrible experience, but to me, as a youngster, I guess it was fun. We slept in double-decker beds, bunks. My mother had a double-decker bunk, and my father had a double-decker bunk with myself on the top. I guess my sister slept with her, and food was not good. The conditions were terrible, and the food was so bad that my father and I would sneak up to an upper class. They were barricaded. You weren't allowed to go, but we snuck up there, and we found garbage cans on the deck in the corner. And the garbage of the first class passengers were placed there, and the sailors used to throw pieces out for the gulls, and we would steal from the garbage can pieces of meat, even though we were kosher, but we were so hungry that we took them.
So what's it like coming into New York Harbor finally?
Well, one morning there was a complete rumble which got louder and louder and louder. We couldn't identify it when it was. It was very early in the morning, maybe 6, maybe 7 in the morning. I have no idea, but it was very, very early in the morning at daybreak. And we heard this tremendous rumble which got louder and louder and louder. So my father and I, we dressed immediately and we ran out to the deck. And there were people of all denominations, some on their knees making the sign of the cross, Jews in their prayer shawls. As we were passing the Statue of Liberty, it was the first time I saw it. It was a great sight.
We got on the Rotterdam. We had a field day. One, I was never on a ship before. I was awed by it. It was overwhelming. All the people and boarding the ship was all a brand new experience. We left Rotterdam. We set sail, and about a half hour after the ship started, my sister got very seasick. It took us 14 days to cross the Atlantic, and in the entire crossing, she was in steerage, and the only time she came out for a breath of fresh air is just about a half hour before we saw the Statue of Liberty. Now, the experience on the ship, being young, was an advantage in that particular situation because we were on the lowest level of the ship. We couldn't go aboard. Some kids were more adventurous, my brother and I, and we would sneak aboard. We were always chased, and we saw some people who traveled maybe in first or second class, and we looked upon them as royalty, but we were confined primarily to steerage. Steerage was one huge place. It was the lowest deck. The stench, it was the summer in August, the humidity, the heat, having no air conditioning, having no cooling facilities. It was very hot, compounded by the fact that there must have been anywhere from 200 to 300 people in that huge cavernous area. The body smells, the body odors, the lack of sanitation, the lack of any kind of facilities, washing. There was no such thing as washing or bathing. The stench, the vermin, it was rat infested. But being children, I guess, had its advantages in this case because we always tried to get out of there. We tried to get out of the steerage, get out of the babble of voices, get out of the heat and the stench, and get on the main deck. We were permitted to stay there for a little while, but we were constantly chased. But the crossing went for us, for me in particular, went very quickly.
Well, finally the boat anchored in mid-bay, mid-harbor, and then they tendered us from the ship to Ellis Island.
What kind
Tender.
of a vessel?
Like a ferry boat, almost. Like a ferry boat, well, similar to a ferry boat. And you took a suitcase, and by the hundreds, we on the ship had to go back and forth a few times, and we landed. Of course, the wharf and the whole area there was not like it is now.
Were
And
there lots of people there?
oh, must have been that day. Must have been about 3-4 ships. Must have been about 5,000-6,000 people jammed. And remember, it was August, hot as a pistol. But there were thousands of people in this building. The place was jammed, and so you're not concerned. You don't realize that this is history in the making. You're just you want to get in, get the hell out of there, and get off. You understand?
What exactly happened?
The guards, as we call them there, the customs officers and immigration officials, they first of all they slammed a tag on you with your name, address, country of origin, etc.
They did that at Ellis?
Huh?
They did that at Ellis?
At Ellis Island, yes. You were tagged. Everybody was tagged. They didn't ask you whether you spoke English or not. Everybody was tagged. They took your papers and they tagged you. That was the first thing. You checked your bag. They had to go through your baggage, and then they pushed you. You know, they just push you. They point because they didn't know whether you spoke English. They could have looked to see I spoke English, but they didn't. Nobody asked me. They too many, understaffed, overcrowded, jammed, and the place was the noise and the languages and the smell. It was
like?
foul.
Trachoma was prevalent at the time. Everybody was tested the eyes with eye drops, and again and again. All right, we passed through that. Then they tested the ears. They took you from one little cubby hole to another, and there was a physician in each area examining you. We had a very, very peculiar experience. When we were in Le Havre, my older sister decided to buy my mother a nice pair of shoes. So they had low heels. My mother never was accustomed to heels. We wore sandals. So she tied it up. And that was a hindrance to us because they took her and they started to look at her feet and test her. They were going to send us back because they thought something was wrong with her. She was going to fall prey to the city, to the government. Until they were convinced that she can walk because she had to take her shoes off and she walked. They couldn't understand why. We had so many experiences.
All right, I got on the boat, I was only 5, and this gentleman who had been back and forth several times, well, my mother took a liking to him because he was so knowledgeable about it. Spoke Italian, oh yeah, he was. And so he took me on a walk one day, and he said, you know what, when you get over to Ellis Island, they're going to be examining your eyes with a hook. And he says, don't let them do it, because you know what, they did it to me. One eye fell in my pocket. So you can imagine how I entered this. So we get over there and everybody has to pass. And I'm on the floor screaming, I will not let them touch me. I passed without a physical. I passed without a, because the other 7 passed.
Oh, yes. This young woman here, they were examining her hair. She had it braided so beautifully because I guess she was going to meet someone, and they unbraided all her hair. And evidently they found something there because they were clipping her hair, just cutting here and cutting there. And she started to cry. She said, but you're cutting my hair. She says, well, my dear, if you want to be in America, we want to make sure that your hair is clean.
When you have customs, immigration, then you had to show your financial security of $20 and so on. And incidentally, I didn't realize until sometime later, but what happened was a lot of the guys on the ship, I told you they were gambling, some of the guys lost their $20. Now, but there was a little racket there. You see, there was a wire fence around it. And you had to go through the customs office was there. Now, in order to go through, you had to show you $20. But a little further up on the fence, there was a couple of guys making money. They would loan you could borrow $20, cost you $2. Follow me? And they would loan you a $20 bill, and you'd go to the gate, and you'd come through the gate, and the guy would be there, take the $20 bill back from you. It cost you $2. For $2, you could show the $20, and now, whether the guy was splitting it with the guard, I didn't know what really was going on. At 19 and I never realized that I was so innocent. You know, I mean, I wasn't aware of what was going on. It was later that I realized, hey, that's a little racket they had there.